Disclaimer. This video contains discussion of real crimes, violence, and kidnapping involving a minor. Viewer discretion is advised. On the night of October 14, 2018, a quiet home in Barron County, Wisconsin, went dark in a way no one could have imagined. Inside that house lived the Closs family, James, Denise, and their 13-year-old daughter, Jayme. They were an ordinary middle-class family, known by neighbors as quiet, hardworking, and devoted to one another. There were no warnings, no known enemies, no signs that danger was anywhere near them. But that night, someone was watching. By the time the sun rose the next morning, 2 members of that family would be dead, and their daughter would be missing without a trace. When police arrived at the Closs residence in the early hours of October 15th, they were met with a scene of unimaginable violence. The front door had been smashed open. Inside the home, life had been abruptly and brutally erased. What investigators would soon realize was that this was not a random act of chaos. It was deliberate, calculated, and horrifyingly efficient. Even more disturbing was what wasn't there. There were no footprints leading away from the house, no blood trail, no tire tracks, and no sign of Jayme Closs. It was as if she had simply vanished. For the next 88 days, the entire nation would ask the same question. Was Jayme alive, or had something even worse happened to her? What followed was one of the most chilling kidnapping cases in modern American history, a case that revealed how ordinary evil can look, how fragile safety truly is, and how courage can emerge from the darkest places imaginable. Before we begin, if you value in-depth, respectful true crime storytelling that focuses on facts, victims, and the full truth behind the headlines, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep these stories alive and ensures they are never forgotten. This is the true story of Jayme Closs. In the early hours of October 15, 2018, Barron County Dispatch received a frantic 911 call from the Closs residence. The line was open, but the dispatcher could hear shouting and panic in the background before the call suddenly went silent. When deputies arrived moments later, they immediately sensed something was terribly wrong. The front door of the house had been blasted open, the wood splintered and hanging loose, clear evidence of a forced and violent entry. Officers announced themselves and cautiously stepped inside, weapons drawn, unsure if the shooter was still there. Just inside the kitchen doorway, deputies found the first body. James Closs lay on the floor, motionless. He had been shot in the face at close range. A spent shotgun shell lay nearby. Medical personnel would later determine that his injuries were instantly fatal. There had been no chance to save him. As officers processed the shock of what they had just seen, they realized this scene was far from over. The house was eerily quiet, but the violence clearly hadn't ended in the kitchen. Moving further into the home, police discovered a second body near the bathroom. Denise Closs, James's wife and Jayme's mother, had also been shot and killed. Brain matter and blood indicated the brutality of the attack. She had been on the phone with 911 when the gunman reached her. 2 parents were dead, executed inside their own home within minutes of each other. But the most terrifying realization came next. Jayme Closs was nowhere to be found. There was no sign of her in the house, no blood belonging to her, no indication that she had been injured. To investigators, this meant only one thing. Jayme had been taken. What began as a double homicide was now a child abduction, and every second that passed reduced the chances of bringing her home alive. As daylight broke over Barron County, investigators began to understand just how strange the crime scene truly was. Despite the violence inside the Closs home, there was an unsettling lack of physical evidence outside. There were no footprints in the yard, no tire tracks in the driveway, and no blood trail leading away from the house. The killer had come and gone without leaving a clear path to follow. Most disturbing of all was the complete absence of Jayme Closs. Her bed was empty. Her belongings were still inside the home. Nothing suggested she had run away. Police quickly confirmed that Jayme was 13 years old, an 8th grade student described by family as shy, quiet, and deeply attached to her mother. There was no history of rebellion, no known conflicts at home, and no reason to believe she would leave willingly. This reinforced the growing fear among investigators that Jayme had been abducted and was in immediate danger. Detectives turned their attention to Jayme's digital life, hoping it might provide answers. Her phone and social media accounts were examined for signs of secret communication, online predators, or an illicit relationship. Investigators found that Jayme used Snapchat and Facebook, but there were no suspicious messages, no unknown contacts, and no evidence of anyone grooming her online. Every lead ended the same way. Nothing explained why this family had been targeted or where Jayme had gone. As the hours passed, the case shifted from a homicide investigation to a desperate search for a missing child. Law enforcement feared that time was working against them. Without witnesses, without suspects, and without a trail to follow, Jayme Closs had seemingly disappeared into thin air, leaving behind only questions and a community gripped by fear. With no clear suspect and no indication of where Jayme Closs had been taken, law enforcement launched an extensive multi-agency search. The Barron County Sheriff's Department was soon joined by the FBI and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Officers searched the area on foot, canvassed nearby properties, and deployed thermal imaging drones in the hope of detecting any sign of life in the surrounding woods. Every possibility, no matter how small, was explored. The day after the murders, K-9 units were brought in to track Jayme's scent from the Closs property. Dogs combed fields, roadways, and nearby forests, but the trail went cold. Investigators then expanded the search, organizing large-scale, daytime operations involving civilian volunteers. The response from the community was overwhelming. More than 2,000 people showed up, walking through snow-covered terrain, determined to help bring Jayme home. Despite their efforts, nothing was found. Forensic teams scoured the house, collecting every possible piece of evidence. Swabs were taken from the bodies in the hope of finding DNA from the killer, but none was recovered. The only usable biological material came from a partial DNA profile found on one of the spent shotgun shells. While it gave investigators something to hold on to, it was useless without a suspect to compare it to. Registered offenders in the area were interviewed and swabbed, yet no matches emerged. As days turned into weeks, hope began to fade. The massive search had produced no answers, no suspects, and no sign of Jayme Closs. The case was quickly becoming one of the most disturbing mysteries Wisconsin had ever seen. Nearly 2 weeks after Jayme Closs disappeared, investigators finally believed they had a break in the case. Surveillance cameras placed around the Closs property captured an unauthorized person entering the home late at night. For the first time since the murders, there was a potential suspect. Officers rushed to the scene, hoping this intrusion might lead them to Jayme or at least uncover the truth about what had happened inside the house. Inside, police found a man named Kyle Jankovich. When searched, he was discovered carrying several items belonging to the Closs family, including 2 pairs of Jayme's underwear. Given the circumstances, Kyle was immediately taken into custody and questioned for hours. Investigators believed they were finally closing in on the person responsible for the murders and Jayme's disappearance. However, as the interview unfolded, the case began to unravel. Kyle offered rambling explanations for his presence in the house, describing himself as a self-appointed vigilante who believed the crime was a setup. His answers were inconsistent, often drifting into bizarre tangents that made little sense. While his behavior was deeply unsettling, nothing he said connected him to the murders or to Jayme's abduction. After extensive questioning, police were forced to accept a painful reality. Kyle was not the killer. He had no information about Jayme's whereabouts. The only real lead investigators had hoped for was gone. Once again, the case fell into darkness, and the search for Jayme Closs continued with morale at an all-time low. While investigators searched desperately for answers, Jayme Closs was still alive, hidden in plain sight just hours away. She was being held inside a quiet home in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, by a man she had never met before the night he murdered her parents. For Jayme, every day became a test of survival, lived under the constant threat of violence and fear. Her captor controlled her through intimidation rather than chains. Most of the time, she was not physically restrained, but the psychological control was absolute. He told her that if she disobeyed, if she made noise, or if she tried to escape, she would be killed just like her parents. The memory of watching her mother and father die ensured her compliance. Fear became the prison that kept her trapped. When the man left the house, Jayme was forced to hide under his bed, squeezed into a cramped space blocked by heavy objects. Sometimes she stayed there for hours without food, water, or access to a bathroom. Even when other people entered the home, she remained silent beneath the bed, terrified the discovery would lead to her death. Shockingly, no one ever noticed she was there. Days blended into weeks. Weeks into months. Jayme had no way of knowing how much time had passed or whether anyone was still looking for her. The outside world continued without her, while she lived every moment unsure if it would be her last. Yet despite the fear, she observed, listened, and waited. And when opportunity finally came, Jayme Closs would make a decision that would change everything. On the afternoon of January 10, 2019, nearly 3 months after Jayme Closs vanished, an ordinary dog walk in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, turned into an extraordinary rescue. A woman named Jean Nutter was just a few doors from her home when she noticed a young girl standing alone in the street. It was the middle of winter. Snow covered the ground. The temperature was bitterly cold. Yet the girl was wearing only a hoodie, leggings, and shoes that were far too large for her feet. One shoe was on the wrong foot, as if she had put them on in a hurry. Jean immediately sensed something was wrong. The girl's hair was tangled and matted. She looked exhausted, frightened, and disoriented. Before Jean could ask a single question, the girl hurried toward her and spoke words that would stun the entire nation. She said her name was Jayme Closs, and she wanted to go home. Jean did not hesitate. She did not press for details. She acted. Jayme pointed to a house nearby and told Jean that she had been held there for weeks, but that the man who took her was gone at the moment. Fearing he could return at any second, Jean decided not to bring Jayme into her own home. Instead, she led her through backyards, keeping them out of sight from the road, searching for a safe place. After knocking on one door with no answer, they reached the home of the Kaczynskis family. Inside, the first call was made to 911. As police were notified that Jayme Closs had been found alive, the adults in the house focused on keeping her safe, locking doors and watching the street. The wait for law enforcement felt endless. But for the first time in 88 days, Jayme Closs was no longer alone, no longer hidden, and no longer captive. Police response to the Kaczynskis' home was immediate and intense. Officers secured the area, set up roadblocks, and prepared for the possibility that Jayme's captor might return. Though Jayme showed no visible injuries, protocol required that she be taken to the hospital for evaluation. A female officer escorted her, with additional squad cars providing security as they left the neighborhood. As the patrol vehicles drove away, an officer noticed a dark red car traveling in the opposite direction. The vehicle caught attention due to its proximity to the house Jayme had identified. Moments later, police initiated a traffic stop near the residence. Behind the wheel was a 21-year-old man named Jake Thomas Patterson. Without hesitation, Patterson made a chilling admission. He told officers, "I did it." Within moments, he was taken into custody. The man who had murdered Jayme's parents and held her captive for nearly 3 months was finally under arrest. Investigators quickly learned that Patterson had no prior connection to the Closs family. He did not know their names. He had never spoken to Jayme before the night of the crime. His decision to target her was random. He had seen her weeks earlier standing at a school bus stop and decided, in that moment, that he would take her. That single, fleeting encounter had sealed the fate of an entire family. As news of the arrest spread, the community was left reeling. The person responsible was not a known criminal or a suspicious outsider. He was a quiet young man who lived nearby, blending into the background. The realization that such calculated violence could come from someone so unassuming made the case even more disturbing. Once in custody, Jake Patterson began to reveal the full extent of his planning and the horror he had inflicted. He admitted that the night he attacked the Closs family, he had meticulously prepared. He wore a ski mask, gloves, and had shaved his head and face to avoid leaving any hair or DNA. He brought a shotgun, wiped down the spent shells, and disabled his car's interior lights. He even switched his license plates with those stolen from another vehicle, ensuring there would be no immediate connection to him. Patterson described the murders with chilling detachment. He shot James and Denise Closs in their own home, leaving their 13-year-old daughter restrained and traumatized. Once he had Jayme, he drove her to a house in Eau Claire, where he kept her captive for 88 days. Most of the time, she was not physically restrained, but she lived in constant fear. When he left the house, she hid under a bed, cramped and isolated, sometimes for up to 12 hours without food, water, or bathroom access. He admitted he never considered locking the doors or taking measures to stop her from leaving. He relied entirely on fear to control her. Despite the terror he caused, Patterson claimed he did not physically harm Jayme beyond shouting at her and hitting her once on the back. He offered her food and drink, and even allowed board games, marijuana, and vodka, but she refused the latter. Yet the psychological trauma was devastating. Patterson insisted he had imagined a future with her, believing that over time they could live together. His lack of remorse and warped reasoning underscored the depth of his obsession and the calculated evil behind his crimes. Jayme's survival, in the face of such meticulous cruelty, became a testament to her resilience and courage as authorities prepared to bring her captor to justice. On May 24, 2019, Jake Thomas Patterson pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide and kidnapping. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murders, plus an additional 25 years for the abduction, all to run consecutively. The judge described Patterson as an embodiment of evil, and he will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Jayme Closs, the brave 13-year-old who endured 88 days of captivity, was reunited with her family and her beloved dog. Though the trauma she experienced will always remain with her, she emerged as a symbol of courage and resilience. She was honored by Wisconsin lawmakers and recognized for her bravery in escaping her captor and helping authorities bring him to justice. This case serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers that can exist in everyday life and of the incredible strength it takes to survive unimaginable horror. If you found this story important, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more real-life true crime stories, and never forget to stay vigilant and protect those you love.